Welcome, everyone, to the Utah Stories podcast. I'm Richard Marcosian. Today on the program, we're talking about big tech silencing voices which they do not agree with and the apparent monoculture of big technology, big corporations, and big government. We're going to be talking all about that and navigating through the discussion of Section 230 and how it protects the social media platforms. Is it still relevant? Should it stick around? But before I get to that, I want to tell you about Canyon Meadows grass-fed beef. Canyon Meadows offers the best local supply of grass-fed beef, the highest nutritional density of beef that you can find anywhere in Utah. It is seriously an amazing product. It's good for the environment. It's healthy for you, and it tastes delicious. Go check them out at cmrbeef.com. Be sure to put Utah Stories in your offer code so that they know that we sent you. Okay, so I want to get right into it. I'm also going to be sharing an interview, a clip with Debbie Aldrich, who works for the company Creative Destruction Media. They were deplatformed by big tech. She has some really interesting insight into the problem of the double standard, the clear double standard that big tech is showing for the voices on the left, preferring those to the voices on the right. So I have to reiterate, Utah Stories comes at this from right down the center. I mean, we have more of a left-leaning publication in terms of our content. We cover the environment. We cover gourmet food and restaurants. We cover the farmers markets and farmers and open space development. So a lot of our content is left-leaning in terms of what we talk about, but we're willing to talk to everybody. And so we're willing to talk to the voices on the left, like the president of Black Lives Matter Utah chapter, Lex Scott. We spoke to her a few months ago. And people on the right, like the Trump supporters who were out at the Capitol just a few days ago. So we are getting actually doxxed right now on social media because we went and covered the protests up at the Capitol. I mean, we have a lot of followers on Instagram who I'm sure are mostly left-leaning, but I believe strongly in our First Amendment rights. I believe strongly in civil discourse by really attempting to try to understand the truth before we come to conclusions. And one of the things that I absolutely cannot stand in our current media environment is the media constantly telling people what to believe rather than the facts. Why cannot the facts just simply be delivered and then allow people to decide for themselves? Okay, so back to the silencing of voices on the right, or even silencing of voices on the middle by big tech. I want to show you what we received after we posted an image up at the Capitol of two musicians who were going to be performing. This is what it looks like. Your post goes against our community guidelines. We removed your post because it goes against our community guidelines. We created these guidelines to support and protect our community on Instagram. We've removed post removed for violence or dangerous organizations. So these guys who were going to perform, there was a whole interview being conducted before they were there. They're called Freedom Ring, or something similar to that. They sang the most insidious, awful white supremacist song while they were there. It's called God Bless America. Not sure if you heard of it. So my original reaction was, I'm sure this is some kind of mistake by Instagram. I don't know why they would remove it, but I posted the post, being the smart aleck that I am. I posted the restriction notice. I got 73 comments. I got 113 likes. The comments are just all over the place. It's been happening lately. Facebook equals Instagram. Censorship is happening. Likely it was Proud Boys in the caption. It wasn't. And this woman says, "Thank you for posting it. I'm glad to know it was taken down." Then let me find the one where Instagram hid a picture of Obama that I put up. They said it was never able. I was not able to put that up there, and it was fake news. They told her, and I called it a peaceful protest. And this person says, am I mistaken that a journalist at the Tribune was pepper sprayed and verbally assaulted? Yes, that is absolutely true, and my sympathies to that reporter. And it's sad that would happen. And then I get these long rants how this was a white supremacist group, and everything there going on was connected, and I'm supporting white supremacist organizations because I talked about the Proud Boys. And the Proud Boys are a big can of worms, I found out. I mean, they are an organization filled with men of all colors who support being proud of your country and are anti-Antifa and anti-BLM. You can think what you want about Proud Boys. The ones I spoke to at Utah's Capitol, they were there with baseball bats, with AR-15s. They looked very tough and mean. What I learned in my interview, and you can go back and watch it, was they were there to simply protect people who wanted to give speeches, because it was I guess there was a stir up that Antifa was going to arrive, and Antifa was going to beat up the Trump supporters as they were going back to their cars. So they were there to support the Trump supporters and support free speech. That's according to them and their words. But think what you want about the Proud Boys. Enrico Tarrio, a Cuban American with dark skin, is now the president. The men I spoke to were Latinos. To say it's a white supremacist organization, I don't believe is accurate with everything I found. I mean, again, I'm not going to tell you what to believe, but this woman just kept saying, we are a white supremacist organization for even reporting and defending them. I report and I defend the facts that I see, and those were the facts. And so what I want to get into now is big tech is, again, silencing the voices on the right. The way they see this is that Trump supporters support insurrection, civil war. The best way we can stop this is to silence Parler and everybody on that platform. And I'm just reminded, Apple is in league with Google, and they're all in league with Amazon shutting down Parler. And I wanted to show you this clip. This is from the internet. See if you remember this commercial.
Today we celebrate the first glorious anniversary of the Information Purification Directives. We have created, for the first time in all history, a garden of pure ideology, where each worker may bloom, secure from the pests, obeying contradictory thoughts. Our unification of thoughts is more powerful a weapon than any fleet or army on earth. We are one people, with one will, one resolve, one cause. Our enemies shall talk themselves to death, and we will...
Remember that commercial? That's when the Macintosh was introduced in 1984, and this was going back to remark on George Orwell's prediction for 1984. But the interesting thing I find about watching that commercial again is the language the big face on the screen is saying. We support a pure garden of ideology, of oneness in thinking, oneness in behaving, one world, a new world order of one way of thought. And isn't it ironic that Apple produced this commercial, that Ridley Scott actually was the director of this commercial, one of the most famous commercials ever produced. And that's what Apple, along with Amazon, along with Google, along with big tech, is creating a new world order. They want to silence anybody who's in the middle and anybody who's on the right. And it's a sad thing to see this, because I love Apple products. I always looked at them like the spirit of individuality, the spirit of going against big monolithic ways of thinking. I mean, the campaign they ran, Think Differently, having all those luminaries on the billboards. Now they are saying, no, we all have to think the same. We all have to abide by this ideology on the left. And you know, the way I look at this, if you kind of look at the way this has happened, I'm going to talk about Section 230 now. When Section 230 was produced, I'm going to show you what that looks like. It was produced so that these massive platforms that were facilitating the discourse, that they would be protected from the actual people making the claims, and it just allowed for this massive amount of people with conversations to go to social media. It allowed for that, the Section 230 protection. So now what we see was this corporate backlash against the tech companies, against Facebook, from silencing the voices that they disagreed with. So, for example, the tweets that Trump was putting out and the things that were happening on Facebook. Did you remember when all of those big corporations pulled their advertising dollars from Facebook because they weren't silencing them? So now they are silencing them. If they don't like what they have to say, they're going to silence them and take them off, remove them. And so we've seen now this giant purge from Facebook. 70,000 accounts that had anything to do with mentioning QAnon were purged. And voices on the right are now totally being purged, which is what made Parler the number one product on the App Store and on iTunes, Google Play. And so now what we see is big tech is like, oh, wait a minute, we're losing our authority and power here. We need to pull the plug on Parler. And absolutely on the other side of things, I see that what was happening was a lot of spewing of hatred, violence, insurrection was going on at Parler. It was a moderation disaster. But what they could have said, Amazon didn't say one thing about why they pulled the plug. They didn't even make a statement. What they could have done is they could have said, hey, look, guys, you got to shut this down for a little bit until you get a handle on your moderation. And at that point, you can relaunch. No, instead, they just completely pulled the plug on Parler. Parler now says that they need to find a new host. It's going to be a little while before they do. And it's just terrible. And this absolutely goes against, back to my original point, the Section 230 protections, which enabled these platforms to grow to the massive size that they're at. So do you understand? They were protected to not do extensive moderation. That's what made these platforms so massive. And now that they're moderating all the voices on the right and allowing all the voices on the left to say whatever they want, that's no longer fair, and 230 should no longer apply. And if you don't think that the voices on the right are being silenced, I want to show you a really interesting interview of a person I met at the Capitol Hill. Her name is Debbie Aldrich, and she works for Creative Destruction Media. I'm going to play that clip for you.
Do a lot of investigating for us, and when we started publishing those stories on social media, big tech oligarchs deplatformed us, and I myself got suspended for a week for a story on Burisma back in November, and I was suspended for a week until I removed the story that I tweeted. I mean, that's kind of the insanity of this whole oligarch thing.
And the Burisma reporting you guys were doing was not hearsay; it was primary sources.
Sources.
It was reporting directly from the mouths of witnesses. Did they say at all what specifically you did wrong?
They said it was fraudulent, it was misinformation, and what's interesting, then like a month later, it's then declared as, yeah, it really did happen, as well as in China with the Biden family. So it wasn't fraudulent.
So that's what I think a lot of people on the left don't realize, is that Washington Post story that came out about Joe Biden's son getting all that money from Burisma, and those emails all being transmitted saying the big guy is going to get his cut, those were all legitimate. They were all true. The Burisma and the mayor of Moscow giving all this money to Joe Biden's son, as well as China giving all this money to the Bidens, it's absolutely true. those stories were reported as disinformation. Russian disinformation is how they were reporting it. And what I think was happening is the mainstream media is now wagging the dog of big tech. The mainstream media got big tech on board with the idea that we should silence the voices on the right that that oppose any type of ideas that don't support their candidate and their causes, and they're now just abiding by those principles. So we just see Mark Zuckerberg and Larry and Sergey at Google, and we see the guy who runs Twitter. I can't remember his name. They're all just absolutely abiding by what the media tells them they need to do, and corporate America, because they don't want to lose their advertisers, because they saw what happens if they don't. And so what we're faced with now is this growing problem of a world that is going to become more homogenized in terms of the beliefs, opinions, ideas that you're allowed to speak about. And I say this at our own peril. We might be in big trouble as a publisher by coming out and just calling it out for what it is. But this is blatant unfairness to the other side, and we cannot have good civil discourse at all if we don't hear both sides. And if you'll go to utahstories.com, we have a lot more information there. You can subscribe to our free digital newsletter, or you can subscribe to the paid magazine and all sorts of wonderful, awesome stories that we broke last month in this one. Our new issue is going to be coming out very soon. Very excited about that one. We're doing a restaurant resurgence guide, and we're going to help all the local restaurants that make up our social fabric come back and show you how you can support them so that restaurants and bars can make it through this. It's looking awful nationwide in a lot of these states. So many restaurant closures. It's just terrible to see what's happened. Don't want to see that in Utah. Apparently, we've already had 430 restaurants close last year. I personally know of about 35 in Salt Lake, and don't want to see that happen. We need to go out and support local Utah. And so that's a big part of what Utah Stories is about too. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. If you'd hit that like button if you like this content, by the way, that actually helps us out a ton as well. But before I let you go, I want to tell you about Green Bikes. Green Bikes is a public-private partnership between Select Health and UTA, and their effort is to get cars off the road when people can ride transit and then ride a bike to get to where they want to go. And one of the very best ways you can use a green bike right now, especially like days like today, it's like 55 degrees outside, is you can ride transit and you can use your green bike to get around and hop around at the bars and restaurants and go support them. So visit slcbikeshare.com. They have a special deal going on right now where you can actually get, if you qualify, an annual pass for as little as $5. It's crazy cheap. And they have electric bikes in their some of their 38 stations around town. Super cool company. Just re-signed them. Glad to have them on board. And again, slcbikeshare.org. All right, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.